Hey Slingers, welcome back to another week of the Wordslinger podcast. And this time around, we're doing something a little different. Stick around after the intro, and there is no interview this time. So, see you on the other side.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger, and I'm going to earn my title today because this is the first in a new experiment, a new format for the Wordslinger podcast. Not all that different. But today, we're going to do a solo episode, which I've done in the past, I admit. But today, we're just going to explore a little and do the sort of Wordslinger Afterword that we have done in the past at the end of a Wordslinger episode. This time, it is the episode. So, we're splitting it up, and here's the deal. And I've already actually recorded the interview version of the show without the Wordslinger Afterward. Mostly, well, here's the reality of it. The show was getting to be an hour long. It's always been an hour long, but it was getting to be more and more past an hour long. And so I decided that it might be fun and might benefit some people if I split things up a little. So some folks were coming to me and they really dug the interview portion of the show, but they would skip out during the afterward. Some folks really liked the afterward, but they could take or leave the interviews. Some folks like both. So this way, I'll be honest, it's a strategy. And it largely revolves around YouTube, because YouTube sort of rewards consistency and having multiple pieces of content up each week. Right now, I'm only posting like a single video a week, and it's an hour long. It should be closer, according to my friend Dale Roberts, whom I interviewed about 10 minutes ago. The YouTube content should be more along the lines of like 15 minutes at the most. But right now, every episode's an hour. And even this 30-minute stuff is probably pushing things a little too far. So we're going to experiment. We're going to see how it works. If it doesn't work, here's the great thing about this kind of content. I can come right back and just do it the way I always did it. And who knows, I may forget. And the next time I do an episode, I may forget that I split the format and do it the old way anyway. So right now, as you listen to this, I am already in St. Louis at the Cat Writers Convention. Now my plan is for this current episode, to go live on Wednesday, which means that I'll have been in St. Louis for about 24 hours. The conference doesn't officially kick off, I think, until Thursday morning. And I'm meeting some folks and doing a little elbow-to-elbow kind of thing with some of the authors and the show hosts and that sort of deal beforehand. So, and I flew in Tuesday, which today is Monday. I just came off of Comic Palooza all weekend here in Houston. A brutal 3-day comic book convention, pop culture convention, in which I did a lot of speaking on a lot of panels in their literature track. So I talked about self-publishing, talked about Star Trek at one point. I talked about Drafts Digital quite a bit. It was fun. It's a fun conference. That convention is something I attend every year. I'm always invited to speak and be on panels, so it's a great convention to be a part of. But after 3 days of that stuff, man, it is a little grueling. And to have to hop on a plane just a couple of days after and spend a week in St. Louis for another conference can be exhausting. But just because I like to put that cherry on top, I am also, my wife and I are going to spend a week further in St. Louis, a further week in St. Louis as a little mini vacation. She's flying up at the end of my conference. I pushed my flight back to later in the week. So we're going to spend a week just kind of exploring the area, getting to know St. Louis. So we've never been there. We thought it might be fun. So that's where I'll be. If you're in St. Louis, look me up. Ping me on Facebook Messenger or Twitter or whatever, and let me know where you are. Maybe we can get together for a cup of coffee or something, hang out. So, and if you're at the Cat Riders Convention, come look me up, say hi, tell me you heard this episode. That'd be fun. I wonder if any of the cat writers listen to the Wordslinger podcast. I bet some of them do when the conference is done. I'm going to make that bet. So sorry about that. I just chest bumped the microphone. So this is the portion of Wordslinger podcast normally reserved as the end of the episode. I changed formats. I've changed formats a couple of times. I've more or less kept the format of the show pretty much the same since day one. I've even had some folks comment on that. But I did sort of change, the way I do intros. When I added video, I changed a lot about the format. I think those changes have been very beneficial. Change is kind of what I want to talk a little about. This is a strategic change for the show in that I've heard rumors that these shows should be, or these videos on YouTube should be about 15 minutes or so. I've always kind of suspected that an hour-long program might be a little too much for some listeners, and I kind of wonder. I've never really tried to figure it out, but there's probably ways to gauge this. But I suspect that some listeners are ditching out after the interview. They get the part that they want and leave. I started putting some content at the end just to kind of encourage people to stick around. But I thought, well, why not split it up? Why not utilize both those pieces as two different episodes and get twice the number of episodes and serve two very different, well, not very different, but two slightly different audiences. Maybe I get more play out of it. So where this comes in, the life lesson. So this is the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off life lesson that we can take from this. In that, as a content creator yourself, and that's what we are as authors, right? We are content creators. As content creators, sometimes we need to rethink how the approach we're taking to things. Every now and then we kind of get into a groove and we don't want to change our policies and we don't want to change the way we do things. It's comfortable, but it may not always be effective. So it will do you some good to occasionally just experiment, switch things up a little. And how you can apply this as a writer, well, let's say that you are primarily someone who likes to write in the morning. Try writing in an afternoon. See if it changes something. What I discovered, because I'm an early morning guy. I get up 4 or 5 a.m., mostly 5 a.m. these days, but I get up at 5 a.m. and I do my thing and I take a little walk. I have my Moleskine journal, this one, if you're watching on YouTube, usually one like this. And I go sit and do a little bit of journaling. I've got a process I'm going through right now, journaling-wise, like a 30-day thing I'm trying out. But there's structure to the morning. But occasionally I've had to switch things up. So the conferences have thrown me off a little. For example, the recording this show. Normally I wait until Friday. I record one episode. That one episode goes out that day, and that's the show. I knew I was going to be out of town, so I wanted to record some stuff in advance. And I really am praying I get to edit this and get both these episodes live, scheduled really to release on the appropriate days. I'm thinking Wednesday and Friday. I think I can do this. Okay. But so writing, I would change occasionally and write in the afternoon or evening to catch up on my word count. Because conferences sometimes make it difficult to do my morning stuff. So I find little snatches of time, lunchtime, I take a break from the conference for a bit, maybe an hour or two, and I go find a quiet place because I know that I come across like an extrovert, but I am an introvert. I need quiet time to recharge. So it has been helpful to me to have that, and writing is a good excuse to get away and do that. What I found is that my writing changes depending on the time of day. Some of that might be because I'm a little more tired. My mind is in a different state when I'm writing in the afternoon. I don't particularly enjoy writing in the afternoon as much. It seems like work, but I get a different flavor from my work when I do that. And despite it not always being pleasant, sometimes the results are fantastic. So, when I reread what I wrote the day before during my edit and rewrite session on the next morning or the next day, whenever I'm able to get to it, it's very different. It has a slightly different tone and feel than what I normally produce, which means that it may take me in a whole other direction. I may make completely different choices in the story than I would have otherwise made. So there's some advantage to that. Change is generally going to be uncomfortable to us, right? We are programmed to avoid change. We like patterns. Psychologically, we're looking for stability, and stability keeps us safe out in the natural world. When we know consistently where to find food, where to find shelter, how to protect ourselves from predators, how to communicate with our fellow human beings so that we are able to meet all of our physical and psychological and emotional needs. That is hardwired into us. It's an efficient system for helping us to stay alive, which is the number one objective of most of our physiology, is to keep us alive. In the modern world, we don't face life and death scenarios quite as often, if at all, most of the time. So we sort of direct that into feeling stable as opposed to feeling anxious. Like we'll start having anxiety when things aren't stable. We start feeling threatened even though there's no actual physical threat. So there are legitimate reasons for why we are resistant to change. But here's the great news about humanity. We have what Jim Rohn calls the dignity of choice, meaning free will. We have free will. We can choose, and Viktor Frankl hits on this in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. We are able to choose our reaction to things. We are able to choose our perspective. We can completely decide on a different interpretation of events just on the fly. So if you get into a car accident, you can react emotionally to it and get upset and worry about... I remember being present when a car was going through in an intersection and the lights were out, and another car, not realizing the lights were out, the traffic lights, ended up plowing into the side of them. The two ladies in the car that were hit, one of them got out, left her elderly mother in the vehicle. Her elderly mother is crying out, "Please get me out. I'm stuck. I'm trapped. Please help me." She was legitimately worried. But the woman who was driving, her daughter, started wailing about how her mother could have died. Her mother is literally 3 feet away, begging for someone to help her get out of the car. And this lady is on the street, on her knees, hands to heaven, eyes to heaven, wailing that somebody could have killed my mama. My mama could have died. Okay? And as people came along to help, myself and others included, we tried to calm her and rescue the mother at the same time, and we call the police and we call ambulances, and we've got things going on, and she will not change her perspective on any of it. Here are a growing crowd of people. Here's a growing crowd of people who are there to help. And she is safe and her mother is safe. They're not seriously injured at all. But the only thing she's able to focus on is that her mama could have died. Now, that is one way to frame that story, and that's her choice, right? But she could equally have decided to frame that as, we've survived. My mother is okay. I'm okay. There are people here to help us. God is good. That's a much more stable, calm way to approach that sort of scenario, and it's a lot more productive because now she can, guide. She can offer assistance. She can guide people. She can ask for help. There's all kinds of things that she could have done at that point to make sure that her mother actually was okay. So that's that story. It's a good illustration of the sort of perspective that we should adapt or adopt rather as writers, as content creators. We can frame the things that happen to us in the same way. We can look at the events of our lives in the same way. I could easily say, I got conferences going on, so I'm not going to hit my word count, as an example. Or I can take advantage of some other downtime in the afternoons, which I'm not typically fond of writing in the afternoons, but I can take advantage of that time and get my word count out. And I can take advantage of being on an airplane, and being trapped in this flying cylinder of metal for a couple of hours and knock some words out, or do some editing, or do some research, do some reading and research. So change can actually be very beneficial to us. Now, we're going to resist change. Nobody likes change. But I think that if we reframe this, we can use it to our advantage and actually grow from it. That's a curious thing. I mean, I get how difficult that can be, by the way. It's easy to say, reframe it. It's easy to say, it's your choice. You decide how you're going to react. You're in control, but it is much more difficult in the moment. So if you're having trouble and a scenario pops up and you're forced to deal with that, or you have to deal with change and it's making you uncomfortable, just know that discomfort is usually a sign of growth. We're always uncomfortable as we grow. So you're going to feel some discomfort. Maybe you learn how to welcome it. But if you're not able to do that right away, if it's difficult for you to think in the moment, change is uncomfortable, but it can be good. Discomfort can mean growth. I can choose to be, positive about this scenario and to be wise about this scenario. If you're unable to do that in the moment each time, reflect on it afterwards and reframe it afterwards. And you'll start to sort of reprogram your response. So in other words, in the scenario of this accident, the younger lady who was worried about her mother, she had the reaction she had. We can't change that. She reacted as she reacted. And there's really nothing wrong with how she reacted. She was afraid. The only thing personally that I think was kind of a mistake was she was ignoring her mother in the vehicle while she wailed about her almost dying. 1 second, water break. So let's say that you are that young woman, and you decide afterwards that you could have reacted better. Rather than feeling regretful that you didn't do the thing that you thought you should do, now you can reframe that. You can retell the story. And we're storytellers, so this is going to work great for us. Maybe we write it out as a journal entry. Maybe if you're a YouTuber or something, you can record yourself going back through the story, tell the story the way it should have happened. You don't have to lie to people. If you're uncomfortable making something like that public, knowing that it's not legitimately true, like it didn't actually happen, then just record it for your own sake. Watch it back as an audience member. You're telling yourself a story. You don't have to lie. But reframing and then really putting that creative energy into it, that's going to do you a lot of good. You can trust me on this, right? You have the ability to reshape your reality in this way, and it's remarkable. And you can get so many positive things out of this. You can do this with anything. Do it with stuff that you regret from your childhood. Do it with stuff you regret from your younger days. I racked up quite a bit of debt in my younger days. I went credit card crazy. I was living off of them. And then there were some times where I had creditors calling and harassing me and making me feel horrible about my life and myself. I had some instances where some of these guys were just scumbags. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. They are just legitimately not good people sometimes. Which is not to say that everyone in the debt collection business is a scumbag, but you are kind of being predatory. But whatever. That's just life. To one group you are a hero, to another group you are the bad guy. To you you're the hero, to someone else you're the bad guy. So that's the way life goes. But feeling pretty low about that stuff, I used to let that impact my self-esteem. As a loser, I didn't pay off those debts. I didn't file for bankruptcy, but I basically welched on a couple of credit cards. And they got written off, and there was fallout from that. I had a bad credit history for a while. So that, those things happened, and I learned some lessons from it, but I always felt guilty about it. So what I did was reframe it and retell the story to myself and fixed it. So in the reframed version of that story, I told myself that I made good on all that. I was polite in that phone conversation. I was, I worked hard to make sure that I met my financial responsibilities. And what has come of that is that I've become that person. I have debt now. I've got student loan debt. I've got, we owe some money on the RV. I have a credit card that I use for ad spend, so it's perpetually got, I always pay it off, but it's always got a little bit of debt on it. But the thing is, I'm a much more responsible person now. I spend much more energy and time making sure that I meet my obligations and do the right thing. And I can be much happier with myself because of that. And that all started with reframing the stuff that I didn't like and telling myself a story of who I wanted to be. And that eventually became a story of who I was. So this is a great power that we have as content creators. Because this is what we're doing for others all the time. This podcast is about framing an experience, my experience, and the experience of the guests that I have on the show, so that I can use it to convey some wisdom. I'm pulling lessons out of these things. It's not like I do an interview and I go in with the agenda of, we're going to talk about this and teach this lesson in this interview. When listeners listen to or viewers watch this interview that I'm doing with you, I want them to walk away with this knowledge and wisdom. I don't do that. What we do is create that as we go. I'm able to frame the interview in such a way that now we can learn from it. Same thing with these. I'm going to have to come up with a new name for it, the Wordslinger Afterwards. I'm going to have to come up with a whole new name for this segment, and this type of episode. But it's the same thing. Like, this is my experience, this is my interpretation, and I'm giving you what I know and what I've learned. But I didn't sit down and write this out and say, today I will teach people that change is something that they can use to improve themselves. It just sort of evolved that way. I maybe started with that idea, and that's usually what ends up happening. I have an idea, and I have a vague notion of what I want to tell you, but it's in terms of the message itself, I have to shape that. I have to frame it in such a way that it's going to have a positive impact. I hope this is clicking. I hope you're getting something useful out of this, because as writers, we tend to be introverted. We tend to like our routines. I, for one, love my routines. But change happens, life happens, So how do you keep going when life gets in the way? When you find out that a relative has cancer? When you find out that, You go out to your vehicle and one of the tires is flat. When you have a routine of getting up at 5 a.m. and making sure you get your word count done, but you're going to have to travel for 2 months solid. So how do you keep going? Change happens. So how do you make sure that you stick to your commitments and your discipline when things have changed? And the answer is to look at the change as an opportunity. How do I use this to enhance what I'm doing? I'm going to have to stop writing in the mornings for a while and write in the afternoons, write in the evening before I go to bed. I'm grumpy and tired at that time, so how do I make myself peppy and energized so that I get the work done? So you can use it as a growth opportunity, and you strategize around it. Knowing something's coming makes it much easier. But even in the moment, you should always ask. The questioning is the most powerful tool we have to impact our lives and impact the world around us. Always asking questions. Always asking, what does that mean? How can I use that? What opportunities can come out of this experience? Who can I influence today? How can I serve today? Ask as many questions as you can think of. And when people get annoyed at you for asking questions, ask them why. Ask them how you can change. How can I make you happy? How can I do things a little different? How can I continue to learn as I'm learning without asking you a question? Get them mad enough to stab you. So anyway, that's where we are. We're at nearly half an hour, and that's what I was aiming for. This is, of course, a very different Wordslinger podcast. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you think of this as a format, of splitting this up. In a couple of days, the interview will go live. I'm not going to stop interviews, so don't worry about that. But I am cutting the episodes in half, and I want to see how that goes. Let me know what you think of that. Is it going to get on your nerves to have 2 episodes a week? That's a question I should ask. And then I have to ask, does it matter to me if that gets on your nerves? Think of it this way. Now you can skip half of my episodes if you don't. If there's parts of them you don't like, you can just wait for the next one. Like if you like these afterwards better than you like the interviews, and you can just wait for the next afterward. And also suggest to me what I can call it besides Wordslinger Afterword. I'll probably come up with something on my own, but I'll take some suggestions in consideration. So. But that's it. That's this week's Wordslinger. That's today's Wordslinger podcast. I'm going to try to do 2 of these a week. I think I can do it. It's not even extra work, honestly. Let me know what you think. Be sure to subscribe everywhere this podcast shows up. Especially go subscribe on YouTube. I'm trying to bump up the YouTube subscriptions there. And share this stuff with as many people as you can. I hope you get something positive out of this. I really do. And if you do, I hope you're doing the world a favor and sharing this content with somebody, because it's very important. I think if you find something that speaks to your soul in some way, that encourages you and uplifts you, that helps you to become more than you were, then it's kind of your duty to share it with other people. So please share, subscribe to me on YouTube, on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and go find me online. You can find @WordslingerPod on Twitter and @Kevin Tumlinson. Search for Kevin Tumlinson and Wordslinger Podcast on all the various platforms. You'll find me. I'm doing a lot more stuff on Instagram now, although I tend to that's my playground for photography. You'll have to let me know what you think of that too. So, God bless each and every one of you. I'm so happy that we had this time together. Really looking forward to hearing from you. I hope you get something wonderful and amazing out of this. And reach out to me at wordslingerpodcast.com. You can email me there. So, I'll take care of yourselves. See you all next time.
Wordslinger.